Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming to the Project Isaiah update. We're gonna have an update about the steering committee and the forecast that make us the Isaiah project. We should probably do a short quiz first. How many know what the Isaiah project is? Who doesn't? You have to come out and sit in the audience. So a brief little description is, when you hear the Isaiah project, think infrastructure. The steering committee and 4 task forces are prayerfully engaged in research, community partnership development, and discernment to provide recommendations to church council about our buildings, grounds, and neighborhood presence. These recommendations will address our current and future needs and support our mission and priorities. That's kind of general, but we wanted to get down to a statement in a nutshell and then expand on that. But if you think infrastructure in 2 ways, hard infrastructure and soft infrastructure, they're both part of this. We've been focusing on the hard infrastructure first, but certainly that will have implications for soft infrastructure, which means what kind of committees do we have, and are the committees needing to adjust priorities or expand roles, things like that. And when it talks about addressing our priorities, we've brought forward and slightly updated the Horizon team, which was a visioning committee from years ago that we needed to act on. We wanted to find ways and always be faithful to the adopted mission and priorities that group brought forward. And those priorities are deepening relationships among our congregation, cultivating discipleship, many opportunities for care of souls and our own spiritual growth, partnering with the community, more conscious efforts to be relevant, useful, and aware of our neighborhood and our community, and engaging all generations, having opportunities for multi-generational activities, and also the physical infrastructure to support all generations. So that's at a high level. The Isaiah project has had multiple updates to the congregation, and we update monthly with the church council. We have kind of short updates every month, and then every once in a while we have a longer update. This is our longer update that we gave to the church council in January, and they thought it'd be very useful to also open it up there, share it with anybody else who is interested. The steering committee, there's a packet of information. We're not going to read this, so there'll be handouts you can take with you that describe this, and then we'll have representatives from each committee just speaking to their task force update. So if you didn't get one of these, this is a to-go packet. Did I say my name? I'm Nancy Brown Keller, and I'm with the steering committee for the Isaiah project. And the steering committee is the group that coordinates and brings together the 4 task forces. Phase one of Project Isaiah, which has been recruiting and building, and they've been working hard for about a year. These 4 task forces, one focused on building, focused on grounds, focused on community partnerships, and focused on what are financial questions. We're almost in phase 2 for some of these, meaning they've got a pretty good goal set in mind. The financial team is definitely transitioning into phase 2, which is coming from financial exploration into planning capital campaign, along with the 175th anniversary. Got kind of a happy accident that we can celebrate 175th anniversary and launch a capital campaign at the same time. It looks like it's a great time to talk about our past and where we're going in the future. And then phase three is really actually phasing. It's covering all time can happen at any time, because there's no specific goal or date. But we're always trying to be more aware of how our community partnerships can develop. A lot of this originally stemmed from looking at our building and realizing that the CYF building was not used very much. Wayne, do I have it right? It's 37 hours a week. 37 hours a month,
The schedule.
37 hours. That doesn't feel right for either supporting it, financially.
That was non-Sunday.
Outside of Sundays, 37 hours a month. That doesn't feel right environmentally. It doesn't feel like right to have that's not used. There should be more purpose to that. But we went through a lot of iterations on what that means, is it keep it, sell it, renovate it, all of this. And those things just take time to develop, and it's certainly sometimes a matter of luck and coincidence and maybe the spirit working to what we should do with our assets. We don't want to just hoard them. We're certainly, I think, called to use our resources. And we feel our grounds and our buildings are a gift, but it's how that develops. So, community partnerships, kind of looking at that and how within our church, how else do we do things differently and think differently about our presence in the community? We don't want to just live in the building. We're the church of the open door, and that open door swings both ways. People come in, but we also need to go out. So that's a little bit of what I think about. We also have to work toward a big overall timeline. So we put together a general timeline of what does this mean now that we've kind of got directions from each committee. And you can tell, look underneath here, we've done so much work, and on the back side is our communication plan with the things to do for that also. But it kind of what boils down to, if we think we need to do a capital campaign, we can't do it in December. Can't kick it off in November either. That means probably that'd be kicked off in September, doing activities in October. Has to be integrated with our regular capital, our regular stewardship. So if we do that, what does that mean? That means we have to have things ready for the silent phase in August. That means we have to test and develop our materials in July. That means we have to have some options and prices to look at by June. That means we have to be doing feasibility studies in May. We have to have listening sessions now and through May about some specific ideas that would go into building, you think, excitement about a capital campaign. That means plans from landscape architects, building architects, when we do their initial plans when we make, and developing capital campaign strategy no later than April, and
We're here.
yeah, we're here. And we are on track. We've met all our January goals, we've met all our February goals, we've met all our March. It's really tricky in April, May, and June to get those things done, but we will have more listening sessions, more update sessions. When we have things for people to react to more specifically, it's hard to react to kind of concepts and plans.
Before you go too far, Nancy, what does that 30-some hours include in that building over there? What's being done there? Yeah.
Waking,
Well, that includes the youth, youth meetings, the religious education on Wednesday nights. Just whatever use, whenever, I took that number from whenever the building was reserved for use, like an example would be like the Wednesday night youth group. And the AA groups, includes whatever AA groups meet.
On that building over
I
there?
don't think any meet over there,
Yeah.
but if that's just an example,
Can't that stuff over there be done over here?
well, that's a question the building.
We're gonna get to that.
Is asking.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that.
Okay.
yeah, that was, you know, part of the plan. What, could everything be shifted here? Could everything be shifted there? What renovations would be needed to make it useful? Because to continue to use it would require investment. And again, does it make sense if it's only 37 hours a month, but then there's a way to maybe put it into use more and be of
That would
service.
give us a chance to expand on this side, if we wanted to, which we always talk about.
And that's been, we'll let the building committee talk to that, but that's been, explored thoroughly. Many options have been explored thoroughly on expand, keep one, keep two.
There are still staff over there, right?
Yes,
Oh, there are?
there's still offices.
Oh, that's what I was wondering.
Oh,
And that time, staff time is not included in your.
Staff time is not included. It's just when the room is scheduled for, an example would be this, the Wednesday youth
Oh,
meetings.
or somebody rents, if there's a, homeschool uses the theater. Put on their place, there's every once in a while a request for a meeting room. But that, you know, 37 hours a month is pretty low for keeping a building as it is, so we've gotta think about all of that.
But you're talking just weekdays, not on
Correct.
Sundays. or
Not
Wednesdays.
Sundays.
Correct. Outside of Sundays.
I just want to clarify.
Yeah, right,
in there.
yeah.
So it's Sundays versus
Right, it's worth saying again.
from, you know, whatever time. And then Sunday, what continuance is it used? Yes. Or is it just
Very
Sunday?
infrequently.
And that, those numbers are old numbers, I mean, we have they don't take account of, new voices,
It takes account whatever was scheduled on the church calendar.
Right, so we have a tenant, from New Voices, the local ensemble that, nonprofit in our community, who's using that space now. It's a rent paying relationship. You just learned that Esther will be relocating its offices to the former nursery. I don't know exactly when that will start, but soon. That's another phase of a paying tenant. So I think, and as Nancy was talking about, community partnerships and phase three, a lot of this depends on availability. It depends on this sort of coincidence of who's looking and what space do we have.
You're spoiling the surprise.
It sounded like the conversation was going in while the building is in use.
Yeah.
Well, it needed.
No,
Let me-
I don't
let me-
know.
That was our starting point.
Right.
That was our starting point.
Yeah.
And that was our impetus for saying, is this what we want? This doesn't seem right that it's only used 37 hours outside of Sundays. And things have happened that are increasing that, and I think we're thrilled about some of these new developments, because that seems the right thing to do for who we are mission wise and also environmentally and budget wise, all of that.
During the church service time, are all rooms used, or what majority of the rooms in the education, in the former education wing?
Pretty much, all. There are a couple rooms that are not used, but for the most part, all the rooms are used.
Okay, thank you. Let's just keep it.
Yeah, that's
I know there's
a,
been a drop and then it didn't know.
It's a Sunday morning, everything's used and then.
Okay.
Then,
Thank you.
then we'll let them. Empty space and we'd like to, like I said,
Yeah.
fill that up more.
So tearing it down is not a budget.
We'll get to that.
Yeah. Although that is, everything was considered, there was just everything's up for discussion was the way we started. We had to gather some facts and figures and then say everything's up for discussion, but we've considered many things and are coming out with 90% sure keeping it.
And that's what today is about.
Yeah,
Just for a little background, how long has that been there? They hasn't recently dropped this enrollment that you're talking about? This,
well, that building was built the same time this was, not to the same standards that this building was built. So it's got a little.
And what
less
was it?
integrity.
and has it been falling gradually?
Its use has ebbed and flowed over the years. Early on, it was used heavily for youth. And then we went through phases where there were conflicts and it wasn't used for youth. And we have our church youth over there, so, I would suggest the last couple of years is sort of what we're looking at in terms of trend data. Yes.
Originally, it was used almost full time for nurses.
Yes.
Big.
Yeah, let's not forget the daycare that was there for many, many years.
Correct.
I think our church needed that, we needed the space, so the daycare moved out, if I remember correctly.
Not quite right, Cheryl.
Not quite right.
Close enough.
Yeah, one, it was never daycare, it was nursery school.
Okay.
We also had a denominational office over there, we had a counseling center over there. And we had a number of issues with the daycare place. It was not entirely about space. It was about us feeling like their tenants at times. But also when we revised the church school room for more dedicated use like theater, et cetera, it just became with secondary.
That's right. So I won't go into too much more on the steering committee, except that the steering committee kind of coordinates and gets all the other teams that are working on their separate tracks, but every once in a while merge, then they work separately, then they merge and share. We hope to end up in a good space all together. But today we'll have short updates from each of the committees and then, like I said, you'll be back and take some of the stuff home. So first up will be building.
Before I start, 2 favors, there's a little bit of history here, so John, if my history mistakes are minor, please roll your eyes. If my history mistakes are significant, do one of these. Okay?
The deal.
I feel, I've read the book, that I remember it properly. And second of all, Bruce, would you like to hold it?
Everybody start asking questions.
I'll do it for you,
Okay, so a lot of people are giving reports, but some of what we want to share with you from the building perspective is kind of visual in nature, and it's historical in nature. This process started about 14 years ago with the desire to stem the exodus of members, evolved into the Horizon, which much of our work was done with. And some of the slides in here are actually from the Horizon. So some things have changed, some things have not. But I want to start with a little bit of, we're here and we're here now. Over the past 175, our church has lived in 3 buildings. First, the Little Brown Church on Oneida Street, followed by the Red Brick Church until 1968. And for the past 57 years, we've lived at our current campus. Okay, people throughout the service this morning and other weeks said, "What about the building?" I said, "Well, let me ask you a question. You built your house 57 years ago and replaced one roof, got a boiler, What do you think the building needs? The issue we have is our campus is so beautiful, our building is so beautiful, that we have internal issues that are sort of aging out. We're gonna sort of get to that. But let's talk about our charge from the steering committee in March of 2024 was to revisit and honor all of the work that has been done to look at its ability to still be resonant with us today. Okay, a lot of it, the people, I didn't realize the Horizon Committee was shortly away from COVID of being approved by church council to do major building updates. What we come to you with is some of that, but what we've done differently over the last thought differently is how do we envision ourselves for the next 30, 40, 50 years? Don Hippus indicates that an architect said to him, you build a church for 100 years, but you need to reimagine it at 50 years to make sure that it's relevant for future generations. An example that I have, you're gonna see one of the enduring issues that is up for discussion is the narthex. And historically, you say, why did they do that? My suggestion is, from reading the history, that the narthex was a bonus in this building because all they had was a vestibule at the other. But think of how we want to use the narthex now versus in 1968. So that's the sort of thinking. As Nancy talked about community partnerships, we have a goal to be more useful to more people, more of the time. And how does our facility support that? We're gonna get through some pieces. So first of all, we revisited the Horizon Task Force, the Bolt report, which was a well-done analysis of the structural issues, does not address the issues of what we'd like to see in use. The Vandersall Collective provided valuable information for this. And along with that, we carefully studied our 10-year capital improvement plan, which is an excellent body of work by our Buildings and Grounds Committee to keep us moving. Over the past 5 years, our building reserve fund is depleted, but we've done $450,000 in repairs over the last 5 years. So we're suggesting we're pedaling as hard as we can to keep going. We need to get over that bump a bit. So we also surveyed 22 ministries and we asked them, what type of space do you need? How do you envision using it? Do you need privacy? So we drew significant input from all of the ministries that we knew of in our congregation. We actually interviewed staff, clergy. What do you think about technology and worship? What do you think about this? And they answered very succinctly what their thoughts were. Thoughts evolve because we're always open to new information. We also had congregational listening sessions where we were seeking input. We got some great input from some of them. Betty, thank you so much for the input you had because that helps our thinking. It rounded our thinking. So with that, that's our input. We identified 9 goals for consideration. Some of these may be desires. Some of them are questions. Could we? Would we? Should we? And so we're putting those out there. One that is pretty certain is access for all in all areas of improvement. In 1984, the elevator was installed on this side. Wow, really neat. One of the reasons we strongly suggest that the CYF building is not well utilized is because it's not as accessible as it should be. So as we look at changes, we need to look at what is accessible and also, thank you, Susan, for your input, multi-generational access. That means young, working age, and retired folks like us. And so we need to have that view of, we've done some good work on our restrooms, more work to be done. We've done some work in the sanctuary for seating, more work to be done. So that's an important goal, okay? Narthex issues, I'll just go through this quickly. Sanctuary considerations, conference rooms and meeting spaces, optimization and renovation of fellowship hall/kitchen, optimization and renovation of CYF building, office configuration and location. That is a what if, that's not a we want to, all right? Multifunctionality of office and meeting space. And finally, above all, good stewardship of our land, facility, and environment. So, to answer the question about adding on, all of the architects have indicated to us, it's not a good carbon footprint to tear things down. It's not a good carbon footprint to add on when you have enough space. So the nether regions we're in right now is how much space do we need and where is it? And if it's usable, it's got to be predicated on access to all of these areas. So those are some very important pieces. So let me go to, we talked about access for all. And now let's, here you can see the stairs to the CYF shows lack of accessibility and no elevator. You can come in the main floor, but you can't use the lower floor. We also know that, you know, there are other access areas in the building that are challenging. So as we work with architects, everything they look at will be addressing accessibility. Remember, this church was built before ADA was in place. And so we've been playing catch up for 57 years, okay? Goal 2, the narthex. We talked about the history of the narthex. What a boon to have heated coat racks.
Yeah.
As heated coat racks, right? Is that the best use of the space? So it's often congested and an inefficient passageway with multifunctional overlay. Now, this is the development of the congregation utilizing this more as a social hub. How can we best maximize this as a social hub? By the way, these photos are from the Horizons Project. These are not from us. So these are established needs that were ready to go to the congregation for support. This is a video that was taken. So for those of you that you've all experienced it, but here is the time lapse of the narthex. We qualify it as salmon swimming upstream to the native and downstream for the coffee, upstream in to get the boat. And can we do a better job with that? Okay, so the other piece is it can be dark, uninviting, and claustrophobic. Okay, one of the themes our architect has come about is you are a well-hidden fortress on the river. How do we make you a more welcoming and inviting environment for people? And it starts with our entrances, goes through our narthexes, and we're eagerly awaiting to hear what ideas they have for us. Okay, so that's the narthex. Acoustics. And I will give you the latest report on acoustics. Acoustics, when this, John did a wonderful walk and talk with us in December and indicated that when the architect designed the building, number one, Blondie Mesh, the music person, had a considerable influence in the design, which meant hard walls, hard floors, no soft surfaces, because music needed to reverberate, and we've done a terrific job of it. The architect also assumed that you could whisper from the pulpit and everybody would hear it. Hence, we have speakers and baffles, and we still have issues. So as a part of our work, we said, we don't know if we'll change anything, but we'd like to know on today's standards what's going on. And there's a concept called reverberation. High levels of reverberation in seconds, 2.63 seconds, is wonderful for orchestra hall quality. 1 to 1.6 is good for audible spoken word. And we've had baffles in the past, they came down. We had numbers in the past, we have numbers now. Currently, due to the engineer's findings, we're at a 2.6. Why is that important to you? Because my wife is in really good shape and she's the healthiest person on the planet. But when she says, what did Catherine say? I missed that constant from Catherine. And what we're hearing is that from the experts is that when you get too high, consonants drop out of the spoken word. And we don't know if we're going to do that. We're going to ask the question, is there such a thing as balance, or are we okay with what we are? Okay, so that's an important finding going forward that the congregation is going to have to weigh in on. Also, it's difficult to give multimedia visual presentations. We had a request from the Kenya folks to say, hey, you know, it's hard to get things up there, but our clergy is not sold on having screens all over, nor are we. Our conversation now is on purposeful, being able to be hidden, but maybe short usage type things. So there's your sanctuary issues. If you were in church last Sunday, you saw Nick with a halo over his head, which we see often on sunny Sundays. And that is an issue of our windows, which are original, single pane, very inefficient, but there is no light control with them. So that is a part of something that is a necessary thing to be replaced. But people don't realize the complexity of that and the impact. So for us to utilize technology, we have to have shades and light control. We can't get to that without windows. So that's the last piece of the sanctuary. Conference rooms and meeting spaces. Analyze and recommend optimal size and number of meeting rooms for staff, ministries, and community, keeping in mind we're hoping to have spaces for community use. Now, our drawback is we know we haven't, we know why we haven't used it. What does it look like if we can use it? And what can we invite for community? And what can we use for our community to do this? Right now, we really don't have meeting rooms. We have an upper lounge, common grounds lounge, we have a living room. Our furniture is heavy, hard to move around. And how does that best serve our ministries and the community moving forward? It's a question. What do you think we need? Where do you think we need it? If we agree that we don't think we want to add on, oh, by the way, if we add 1 square inch to this building, we now have to install sprinkler systems. How do you want to spend your money moving forward? Putting in a sprinkler system for the best fortress in town? I'm not so sure. Goal 5, fellowship hall kitchen, another facility that has never functioned the way it was supposed to. Originally was a U. The Amistad room was carved out of it. Acoustics, we have asbestos throughout the building, which is always an issue. If you touch a room, you have asbestos abatement, which is a cost. That's part of the process of when we built and what was available at that time. So we're looking at how can we better utilize that. We've heard from the architects, we're very close to commercial kitchen status, which means that could be an income stream if we were to use that for weddings or caterings and things like that. It's a what if, is it something we're interested in doing? But certainly the technology and the needs in there are significant. Here you can see the deteriorated finish and asbestos flooring, and that's an issue moving forward. Optimization and renovation of CYF building. It was built as a bare bones addition. There is not and was never intended to be a welcoming entrance on this site. It was utilitarian. It was built at the same time, but it wasn't scheduled to be built, but it was built. Similar to the chapel. Is that correct, John? That they both came, although they weren't, the original chapel was to be on the facing pews facing east. So we have these, but they're sort of bare bones. And what we have on that site specifically is we have plumbing issues, we have air handling issues. We don't have proper air handling over there. And so if we want to use that, what's the minimum we need to get ourselves to where it's functioning? That a lot of this is dependent on what's the use for that building going to be and how can we envision the use? Goal 7, office configuration and location. It has been a desire of staff to be in one location. You have much staff over here. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 staff on the other side. They either all have to come over here or they all have to go over there. And so that's a what if. And there may be several deal breakers in there, but we're asking the architect to say, what can you suggest in our current footprint where it makes sense? If everybody was on that side, who's the man in the store here? Those are issues architects are working through for us. Maybe something we can do, maybe not. These are questions. Goal 8 is multifunctionality of office and meeting space. One of the messages we send is we're welcoming or we're not welcoming. And one of the welcoming messages is for families of young children, when they walk in, my granddaughter is 4, and she has to go to the farthest room in the building for her Sunday morning education. And what about a nursery or nursery space? It would be optimal to have space for a nursery very close to the sanctuary. We have a lot of other business here. Can we multitask that functions as a nursery on Sunday morning, but functions as something else during the week? So we're asking those questions of our space so we can be efficient with our space. Okay. Finally, good stewardship of our land, facility, and environment. Our architects listen to us, and they're very tuned into how we live and how we want to live, have identified a welcoming environment. They've identified that we want to be good stewards of the land. They're interested in working with our grounds committee and providing exits and egresses that will allow us to enjoy the grounds that you'll hear about. So, very good conversation so far. Those are the 9 issues we're working. Where we are currently is we went through a process, and we invited architects to bid. One of our recommendations from Patrick Andrew Warner was a firm called TKWA out of Milwaukee. They have much church experience. We saw examples and we thought, ooh, that would be nice for us. It's like when you're at a home show, right? When you're at a church. And they have turned out to be really good listening partners, and we're anxious to find out what they have to say about what possibilities exist. They also understand who we are, that we are congregationalists. We do the work. We have a certain how we operate, and we're not going out on a limb and creating the next megachurch. Okay, we are who we are, and they're very in tune with that. So that, in a nutshell, is what's going on with the building. I pose these, when we said we have needs, they said, don't pose it as a need, pose it as a question. And so that's where we are right now. And I invite you to reach out to me through the box, online, or the Radley and Church thing, to say, I have suggestions or I have issues with any of this. This is all on our Isaiah website. There's also a video, an 8-minute video on what are we doing, which is about 2 months old, we're past that. That's what's going on with the building. Question?
I'm sure I can find this on the website, but I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dale Hanson, I represent the Isaiah building team.
Okay, what's the name again?
Hanson, Hanson.
Okay, thank
Yes.
you.
So I apologize for that, I was so urgently trying to Bruce out of the room. Yeah. So this is a lot, but I want to provide it visually and take a look at it, and please give us your thoughts. It's very important for us to hear what's near and dear to you in terms of this. Remember, we're not only looking at fixing the building, we're looking at what do we look like 30 years from now? How are we serving our next population? So, thank you.
Next, we want to do grounds, financial, or community partnership.
I'll go next.
Okay, we got a volunteer. One second though, Chris reminded me, I should have introduced everyone who's on the Isaiah Project Steering Committee first. So, you're on the steering committee, why don't you stand up?
Hey, fine. You're glad you see everything else is great.
So, the steering committee, they're not all here. Chip Gabby's on it, the pastors are on it, Sarah Wilterdink is on it, and Bill Witzy, Steve Herbie, Susan McFadden, Chris Hippus, myself. All right.
I'm Wayne Lenoy, I'm a member of the grounds team and the buildings team. I should know better than to try and follow Dale, like I couldn't possibly talk that. And that's not to demean what Dale said. Mine will be very short. Well, we also have a team of people that are trying to analyze what should the outside of the building look like, not just what's inside. And so our church has been blessed with a very large, beautiful, and undeveloped property. A goal of the Isaiah Grounds team was to make plans to make our outdoor property more inviting, more welcoming, accessible, usable, and safe, not only for just our church members, but for the community as well. We've been meeting since early summer, and what we've done so far is we've taken a lot of tours of the ground. Look and see, so the members of our committee see what we have. We've completed a very detailed botanical survey, sorry for pronunciation, with a professional botanist. Being keenly interested in that myself, I was out there with the botanist, and he started to tag trees that were undesirable for cutting. We quickly changed that and we decided to tag what we should keep. I had previously thought that our drones just consisted of buckthorn and box elder, but the botanists actually did find some desirable species of plants and trees that should be maintained. What we've also done is we've held a lot of discussions about potential visions, what the property really should look like. We've interviewed our pastors about their visions. We've talked to Sarah Wilderdink about what her needs and visions are. So we've developed a want list for our property improvements. The things we've come up with are memorial garden accessibility. For instance, if you step out the store, I've seen more than one person tripping crevices in the flagstone and the step. We've also would like to have some accessibility to the ravine, whether it's ADA compliant or not, but we'd at least like to get the Memorial Garden space ADA compliant, wheelchair compliant, that you'd like an outdoor gathering space. We talked about the possibility of using the area outside the fellowship hall as a gathering space. We've talked about restoration of trails. There are significant number of trails that are on our property that have been abandoned or have become overgrown. A number of our members have looked at what's called the Grace Trail. That's a trail of monuments or markers that invite spiritual reflection. And we've talked about new and improved signage for the property. Our next steps, we've interviewed a number of landscape architects. And we anticipate that we will be employing one soon. Even though we may not have a budget or be able to do a lot of these things in the very near future, we feel it's very important to have a hard copy plan of what the vision of the property could and might look like in the future. So we're hoping to get that done by a professional architect. And any questions? Yes.
Sorry, what about you had reviewed the outdoor labyrinth as well, I'm assuming?
Yeah,
Okay,
we're planning on keeping that, possibly extending a trail that adjoins, connects the ravine to the labyrinth in some manner.
oh, great.
And we don't know if that's a possibility, but we'd like to entertain the idea at least.
Are you looking at the possibility of also allowing the community to?
Yes, of course, that's in our goal statement,
It's high priority.
to make our property accessible not only to us, but to be inviting for the community as well.
Wonderful, great to hear.
Wayne Nancy was very instrumental in the Grace Trail up
Yeah.
by North Black Creek. And with our labyrinth of the Grace Trail, you couldn't ask for a better situation.
There's a great opportunity there for
Working the Grace Trail with the labyrinth, I think would be, for the community, would be really something special.
So if anybody would like to talk to me further about any of these ideas, I'm generally available on Sunday, or you can get ahold of me. Okay,
Yeah. Amy.
But so, I'm Amy McGowan, I'm a community partnership team along with several other members that are here to be helpful for questions probably. About a year ago, my daughter Sylvia, she's in college now, she asked me a question that made me stop and think. She said, "Where are your third places?" At the time, I hadn't heard the term, but after she explained it a little bit, it made a lot of sense. Third places are the spaces outside of home or work or school where community happens, where people gather, connect, and they belong. I started thinking back to my childhood to where my third places are, and I need all to think of where your third places might be. But for me, it was my church. And every Sunday, we had coffee and donuts together with friends and neighbors. Every summer, the whole town came together for a church picnic, games, beer, chicken dinner, the standards. And it was where friends and neighbors gathered, where they where friendships were made without a lot of effort. So what are your favorite places? Maybe it was a library, coffee shop, community center, park, or a local diner where everybody lingered to talk. So now what happens when those places disappear? When third places fade away or become transactional, shifting from community to consumerism? We lose more than just the physical space. We lose connection. Neighbors don't know each other. Conversations that once happened naturally, they don't happen as much anymore. And slowly the threads that weave the strong community start to break. So thankfully, we live in a really beautiful community where the community still matters. We have a beautiful new public library, well cared for parks and trails, and spaces where people can gather and feel a sense of belonging. But wouldn't it be wonderful if our church were one of these places too? That's not a new idea. The early church looked like that. They were just a place of gathering and worship. They were a place of encouraging, belonging, of shared life. And wouldn't it be incredible if our church could be that kind of space where people feel connected and supported and truly at home? That's something that our community partnerships task force has been thinking a lot about. How can we be more useful to more people more of the time? A place not where people just come on Sunday morning, but where the neighborhood feels welcome, where people naturally gather, connect and belong. And at the heart of the work, we're asking just a simple but powerful question about how do we be a better neighbor? How are we more part of this neighborhood that we exist in? And how do we become more useful to more people more at the time? So over the past several months, we've been working toward that, through the report that you have in the package. But a few of the things that we have been doing is really trying to understand our neighborhood better. We've done that through conversations and through some of the available data, participating in the Neighbors in Action program led by David Philpott, connecting with city officials and elders, church member neighbors and non-church member neighbors, and surveying community members during our trunk retreat. So we're trying to really understand what this neighborhood is and how we can be more useful to this neighborhood. We're also trying to identify ways that our church facilities can be more useful by finding or developing community partners that we can support with and work alongside. For example, the New Voices that Steve mentioned, the new partnership with Esther, and another, just exploring other similar uses where community needs could fill the spaces in our building. We're recommending that the church advertising and availability of rental space for nonprofits on its website. And last, we're calling ourselves the Spark Club because it's just igniting a connection between people in our community and our church. So we're encouraging participation with the Neighbors in Action Academy, looking at having an actual neighborhood identified here through the city of Appleton, not led by our church, led by neighbors, but maybe the connection point where those people could meet. And then just continuing further conversations on this timeline that community partnership really is supposed to last the life of their project and beyond. But some of the things that we're looking at right now are trying to identify what do people in our neighborhood identify as things needed in our community? Are those things that our church can provide? We're passing on those suggestions to the building task force and the grounds task force. And one of the things that is coming up that we're preparing for is a repair fair pilot on Service Sunday, where community members can come to get help and little groups about different items to repair, possibly sewing. So we're looking for people that would have tasks and expertise in certain areas that can help the neighbors in our community, not just in our church, but just in our community for things like that. So we'll pilot something during Service Sunday, and we hope to make that a little bit broader. We had some members of the task force do a investigative approach yesterday. There's a repair fair in is it Neenah or Neenah? So that is what I wanted to share for the Community Partnerships Task Force. Open questions. Yeah.
I was at the repair fair with Steve yesterday, and we talked about our neighborhood. There was the trunk or treat, drawing information in. we were interviewing all the people that were providing the services. We had a rich conversation for certain, congregation for services, but one of the persons said, oh, you're the church on the river. I live on Weimer Street and I repair bikes. Can I work at your repair fair? And we said, that's a home run. That's all of our boxes. You're in our community. You're supporting our community. And I think that, Steve, I don't know if you have any other comments, but that just really drove it home that this is the right thing to do.
Financial slash capital campaign.
Good morning.
Morning.
Before I get started, I'd really like to recognize Nancy.
Yes.
She heads up the steering committee, and the comment she made at the beginning of being on time and accomplishing all of our objectives is not an easy thing to do with the vast number of objectives that we have, committees that we have, and the fact that everyone's a volunteer. So, thank you, Nancy, for everything you've done putting this together. We have heard a lot about things that we would like to have, things that we need to have, and these things cost money. And we're all aware of that, and as we have gone through and taken a look at the finances relating to this, as we want to be good stewards with our buildings, with our grounds, we want to be good stewards with our money as well. And the information that we have gained from the past in many of the projects, I think, what was the number, Dale, you brought up? It was 400,000 that's been done over the past
5 years.
5 years, $400,000 worth of maintenance and upgrades to the facilities we have here. A lot of that was coming out of regular funds and the building
Reserve fund.
Thank you, the building reserve fund. And we have now brought that down to where there is really no funds left in that reserve fund for us to work with. So we're reaching an apex where we need to have money in order to support the building. But we also need to look forward and say, these challenges that we've had with the building for years, let's not kick the can down the road. Now, as we take a look at what we want to do, as we re-envision as Dale pointed out, the second 50 years of the building, who we are, and what we want to do with the community. We realize that this is a project that's worthwhile and a project that needs to be done and take place. So, funding the project, many of you have probably heard the term capital campaign, which is an event that organizations utilize when they are met with a financial challenge and want to make sure that what they are putting together for the future is viable. We are looking at doing a capital campaign for the end of this year. The finance committee, which has been working with each one of the groups to consider the funds that are needed for accomplishing all of these wonderful things that everyone is up and talking about, and the things that we need, as well as the things that we want. That goes beyond what we can raise in a single year in our normal giving that we have. So we're looking at changing the finance team to a capital campaign team. And we have 8 people on the finance team. We'll be working to meet a lot of things that Nancy was saying at the beginning of the talk as she worked from the end of the year backwards through to where we are now. the different phases of a capital campaign and the different things that we need to do that. We will be communicating regularly. We want to be as transparent as is completely possible to let everyone know what directions are being taken, what funds are being utilized, and where we're going to go with the capital campaign. So at this point, we have not only been working with an architect and gotten RFPs from the architectural the building team. We're considering a capital campaign partner, which would be an organization of professionals that comes in and helps churches and other businesses when they need capital campaign funds done and utilize them. We have talked with 5 of those companies. We have issued RFPs or requests for proposal to 3 of those and have gotten responses back. And this coming week, we'll be starting to look at those responses to see how they fit in with the things that we need. As a congregational church, there is a lot of things we can do ourselves. And people have stepped up and said, I'll be willing to do this, I'll be willing to do that. We have some wonderful meetings coming up in the next few weeks to take a look at marketing for a capital campaign and reducing the overall cost of raising money, which is something that no one really wants to spend on, but when you take a look at what is needed and how much money is needed, professionals being involved are really something we have to consider. So that's where we are at currently. I'm open for any questions that you have. My name is at the bottom of this page down here. I'm on Realm. If you want to reach me by email or by phone. And thank you.
On the watch, we will again be ramping up some additional listening sessions where we've got concepts for people to look at and maybe want some direction and feedback from the congregation on how those concepts are shaping up. And we're gonna need your input again because of our timeline. We're gonna need input pretty quickly and to turn around and get feedback to the various plans that they develop. So we just hope you will continue to be engaged in this process and let other people know about it and to attend the listening sessions as they get scheduled in the future. Any other questions before we wrap up today?
Thanks for all that everybody is doing on this. Thanks.
So I assume you would be open to a communication, somewhere that says, I'm eager to offer a lead gift.
Absolutely.
Thank you, John. Me, because my employer did not pay me all that.
Yes, lead gifts and contributions are gladly and rapidly received.
Thank you all.
Yeah, great.
Thank you for your time.